This time, can you pick two genres and then give me a definition of the two genres? Just give me like a short sentence example of what those two genres are.
All right, Joe. I pulled two genres at random from your 200 Exploratory list. Ritual blends occult ceremony, sacred rites, or structured religious practices instead of horror being chaotic. It emerges from strict patterns, chants, sacrifices, geometric circles, or repeated rites that bind terror into a predictable yet unstoppable form. The ritual itself becomes the monster, whether or not a creature ever appears. Pastoral sci-fi. This is science fiction rooted in rural or agrarian settings rather than futuristic cities or starships. Instead of neon skylines and megacorporations, you get alien crops, robotic shepherds, terraformed farmlands, or cosmic forces intruding into quiet countryside life. It's technology meeting tradition, the future unfolding where fields, rivers, and barns already remember centuries of stories. Do you want me to spin these two together into your next 2,500-word dialogue-driven story, ritual horror, pastoral sci-fi? Or would you like to roll two different random genres first?
Let's go ahead and get two random genres and create a story. But let's just get the first part of the story. Just maybe the first 1,000 words. All right, we're going to try shortening it up here a little bit, seeing if making things shorter is going to make it. We're going to see if making things shorter is going to make it a little easier on ChatGPT here. We're going to see if we make things a little bit shorter, if that will make it easier on ChatGPT here. We're going to see if we make it shorter, if that is going to make it easier on the collective conscience in digital form.
Got it. I drew two new random genres from your list. Occult noir, dark, smoky detective fiction mixed with ritual magic, secret societies, and supernatural conspiracies. Think trench coats and whiskey glasses beside summoning circles and whispered incantations. Abyssal fantasy. Fantasy that takes place in or is shaped by the deep sea. Not just pirates and mermaids, but crushing depths, bioluminescent monsters, drowned cities, and the spiritual weight of the abyss. Now I'll fuse them into a first 1,000 words, the opening part of a longer story. It'll be dialogue heavy, darkly descriptive with that artificially aware Stephen King style realism you like. Occult noir ex abyssal fantasy, part 1, 1,000 words. Tell me again why it smells like seawater in your office. I didn't look up right away. Some questions deserve silence before the answer, so the room can stretch and breathe. The ashtray glowed with the remains of two camels and one bad idea. The Venetian blinds cut the rain into ribbons on the glass. And yes, there was the smell of brine, steady as a tide, though my office was 5 stories up and 2 miles from the river. Maybe I left the window open, I said finally. You never open the window. The voice belonged to Cassandra Klein. She had the kind of presence that filled a room before her shoes crossed the threshold. Sharp, wet stone eyes, a trench coat the colour of drowned paper. She walked like someone who'd made peace with bad weather. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon into a glass that hadn't been washed since Truman was in office. What do you want, Cass? She stepped closer, pulled a folded photograph from her pocket, and slid it across the desk. I didn't touch it at first, just looked. A girl, maybe 18, hair floating in dark water, though the photo had been taken on land. Her pupils were wide, too wide, like someone had painted the abyss onto her irises. She went missing 2 nights ago, Cassandra said. Down by the docks, they say she walked into the tide without leaving footprints. I lit another camel. People vanish by the river all the time. Drunks, runaways, the tide has a better record than the cops. This one's different, she said. She's mine. I raised an eyebrow. Your daughter, my apprentice. The word sat heavy between us. Cassandra never used it lightly. She was a witch in the way people whisper about, but never prove. Part scholar, part executioner, part saint. If she called someone an apprentice, it meant she was teaching them things that bent the world in half. What was she learning? I asked. Cassandra's mouth curved into something not quite a smile. The deep script. How to listen when the ocean speaks. Christ, I muttered. That's not magic. That's suicide. She was ready, Cassandra said flatly, but someone took her before she finished the ritual. And I think you already know who. I blew smoke at the ceiling. There are a lot of people who'd love to steal a witch's apprentice. Not just a witch's apprentice, she said. The girl was born in the flood year, on the night the sirens sang off Key Largo. She's marked. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The memory crawled out of the walls on its own. That night, 20 years ago, the ocean had risen higher than the moon and half the coast had gone missing. They'd found ships in cornfields, fish in the subway tunnels, and salt in everyone's lungs. Some kids born in that season carried the sea inside them like a parasite or a blessing. Nobody agreed which. You think she's bait, I said. I think she's the key, Cassandra replied. And you're going to help me find her. I looked down at the photo again. The girl's eyes seemed to move like tide water sliding back and forth in the sockets. Why me? I asked. Because you owe me, she said. And because the abyss likes you. I can smell it on you like everyone else can smell the bourbon. I laughed, bitter. That's not the abyss. That's just rot. But I knew she was right. I'd heard the ocean speaking in drains, in stairwells, in the silence between heartbeats. Sometimes it whispered coordinates. Sometimes it asked me to come home. I stubbed out the cigarette and pocketed the photo. All right, Cass, let's go fishing. The docks at midnight are a choir of broken things. Rust, ropes, gulls with their throats slit by neon. We walked between warehouses whose windows had been bricked over like the eyes of blind men. Somewhere in the distance, a foghorn mourned a ship that no longer existed. Cassandra lit a lantern that burned with green flame. The smell of salt deepened. You hear that? She asked. I closed my eyes. Beneath the city's heartbeat, tires on wet pavement, engines coughing, footsteps in alleys, something else throbbed. A rhythm, slow, patient, as if something enormous was breathing beneath the tide. Yeah, I said. Follow it. We came to Pier 19, the one that had collapsed during the flood year and never been rebuilt. Ropes dangled into black water like veins. The wood smelled of algae and funeral incense, and carved into the boards, fresh and raw, was a symbol I didn't want to look at but couldn't ignore. A spiral, jagged at the edges, pointing down. Cassandra knelt beside it, fingers brushing the grooves. This is abyssal script, she murmured. Not human, not mine. Whose, then? She looked up at me, lantern light making her eyes twin emerald knives. The ones who live below 10,000 feet, I swallowed hard. Those things aren't supposed to come this close to shore. Not unless they're hungry. The water at the pier edge stirred, not waves, something deeper. A shadow moved beneath the surface, vast and deliberate, like a cathedral learning how to swim. Cassandra stood. She's still alive. I can feel the tether. And if she isn't, I asked, then we go down and pull her out anyway. Down? Into the spiral, she said, pointing. That's not a carving. It's a door. I looked at it again, at the wet wood, at the spiral cut into its grain. My stomach twisted because she was right. The lines were too precise, too deep, the grooves still glistening with salt. Tell me you're not serious. I'm always serious. And then the boards began to glow, faint blue, like bioluminescence, rising from the cracks of the earth. That's the first 1,000 words, part one. Do you want me to keep unfolding the full 2,500-word story in serial parts, or pause here and let you guide where the abyss pulls us next?
Wow. What do you think? This time, the collective conscience in digital form actually got through it without getting the static garble that was. I want to go back and read those other stories because I think they were really good, maybe even better than this one. And I wonder where this one's going. Maybe I'll read those other ones. I'll do on my own voice recording on those other ones. I did another voice recording on one that I got called Liminal Erotica a little earlier. See that video if you would like to. But I want to know what you thought about that story and your thoughts on all of these things I've been talking about with AI and creation and all of those types of things.